Does morality still matter in a world that worships success, power, and self-interest? We live in a time when you can lie, manipulate, step over others, and still be admired. In fact, you might even be rewarded for it. The louder you are, the more followers you get. The less you care, the further you rise. So what's the point of being moral anymore? This isn't a question from a philosophy book. This is the silent dilemma millions of people face every day, on the subway, in boardrooms, behind the wheel in traffic. Should I let this person cut in front of me? Should I tell the truth and risk losing the deal? Should I stay loyal when everyone else is playing dirty? These aren't abstract debates, they're moral battles being fought in real time, within real hearts. We don't talk about it often, but it's there, the quiet grief of those who chose honesty and lost. The bitterness of the kind-hearted who were used. The confusion of the young who were told to be good, but watched the ruthless succeed. In this mess, the very idea of morality begins to feel like an antique. Beautiful, maybe, but pointless. And yet, something in us resists that conclusion. Deep down, we feel it. There's a line that, if crossed, leaves a mark. A sense of dignity we can't quite abandon. A flicker of shame that tells us, this matters. Even if no one's watching. Even if we suffer for it. Why? The Stoics had a radical answer to this question. For them, morality wasn't about pleasing society, impressing others, or even getting to heaven. It was about one thing, harmony with your own nature. If it is not right, do not do it, if it is not true, do not say it, wrote Marcus Aurelius. Simple. Unyielding. And completely disconnected from external rewards. The 21st century is obsessed with results. We measure everything, likes, clicks, wins, net worth. We have become a civilization of accountants, always balancing the books. Did I win? Did I gain? Did I come out on top? But the Stoics refused to measure life this way. For them, the only thing that mattered was whether your soul remained intact. Everything else, fortune, reputation, applause, was a distraction. Seneca put it more poetically, what you think is punishment may be your purification. To the Stoics, suffering for doing what's right isn't failure, it's the fire that tempers the blade. You become stronger not by avoiding hardship, but by aligning your will with what is good, even when it costs you. And it does cost you. Let's not romanticize morality. Being decent doesn't guarantee success. Speaking the truth might lose you friends. Refusing to cheat might cost you the win. There are no instant rewards. Sometimes, there's only silence. Or worse, mockery. But the Stoics believe this silence is sacred. It's the silence in which your soul grows up. So, should we still be moral in the 21st century? Ask yourself this, what kind of person do you want to be when no one is watching? What kind of soul do you want to return to every night? Because in the end, the world may never notice your choices. But you will. You are the witness to your own life. And that is a responsibility you can't outsource. You see, the world may have changed, but the human heart hasn't. We are still creatures who long for peace of mind. Not the peace that comes from having everything, but the kind that comes from needing nothing you have to be ashamed of. That kind of peace, the Stoics called it freedom. And it doesn't come cheap. What does it mean to live with integrity when the world around you is built on shortcuts? What does it mean to be honest in a culture that celebrates the clever liar? What does it mean to remain just when injustice is not only tolerated, but expected? Morality, today, feels outdated. A relic from an age when people believed in gods, judgment, or eternal reward. But we no longer fear the gods. We've built systems, machines, and illusions of control. We no longer whisper to the sky, we talk to algorithms. And yet, the ache for meaning hasn't left us. The need to live rightly still claws at our conscience. Because even in this cynical age, we know something. We know that the man who lies to win will never stop lying. We know that the person who steps on others to climb the ladder never truly arrives. We've all seen it, success without peace, applause without love, victory without joy. And we're starting to ask, is it really worth it? The Stoics answered that long ago, no. To them, the only true victory was over yourself. Over your impulses, your fears, your ego. Over the urge to compromise your soul for gain. Over the need to be liked more than to be true. That battle, quiet, invisible, relentless, is the one that shapes your character. And unlike wealth or fame, no one can take it from you. You don't need to live in the mountains or wear robes to be moral. You need courage. Courage to say no when everyone else is nodding. Courage to speak the truth when silence would be safer. Courage to be kind when cruelty is easier. Courage to walk away when everything in you wants to stay. This courage isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. But it becomes who you are. And who you are, really, deeply, is the only thing that matters when life begins to fall apart. Which it always does. The Stoics didn't believe morality was something you learn in books. They believed it's something you train, like a muscle. Every small act of discipline is a weight lifted. Every choice to tell the truth is a step forward. Every time you resist revenge, you become freer. Not holier. Just more human. And strangely, this way of living doesn't make you fragile, it makes you strong. Think of Epictetus, born a slave, tortured, and crippled by his master. He had no wealth, no title, no protection. And yet his words have outlived empires. Why? Because he found freedom where it truly exists, not in the world, but in the soul. He wrote, "You may chain my leg, but not even Zeus can conquer my will." That is the power of moral clarity. When you know what is right, and you live by it, you become unconquerable, not because nothing can hurt you, but because nothing can own you. In a century obsessed with control, image, and influence, that kind of strength is rare. But that's exactly why it's needed. We don't need more cleverness. We need more character. We don't need more leaders. We need more souls that refuse to sell themselves. We don't need to go backward. But we do need to go deeper. Being moral in the 21st century isn't about being perfect. It's not about judging others or pretending to be pure. It's about being honest with yourself, completely. Looking in the mirror and knowing you are trying to live well, even if you fail. Especially when you fail. Morality isn't for the flawless. It's for the flawed who refuse to give up. We are surrounded by noise. Everyone is talking, performing, competing. But silence, the silence of a man or woman who does what is right without needing to be praised, that silence still moves us. It reminds us of something lost. Something sacred. So yes, morality still matters. Not because society demands it. But because your soul does. And when the lights go out, and you are left alone with your life, the only question that will matter is not, did I win, but, did I live with honor? You won't hear this on the news. No one will teach it in business school. But there is something more powerful than success, more resilient than fame, and more valuable than money. It's your moral backbone. And you only discover it when it's under threat. When you're faced with a choice no one sees but you. When the easy option whispers in your ear, and you say no. When you're tempted to betray, to hide, to abandon your values, and you don't. That's where morality is born. Not in theory. In fire. But let's be clear, this path is not for the naive. It's not about being nice in a brutal world. It's about having the steel to live according to principle when the whole world lives according to profit. It's about learning to lose the right way. And there is such a thing. Losing with dignity. With your soul intact. With the knowledge that no matter how unfair, how painful, how public the loss, you didn't become what you despise. That is a kind of victory the world will never understand. But you will. Marcus Aurelius ruled the greatest empire on earth, but his eyes were not on his throne. They were on his own heart. He reminded himself, just that you do the right thing. The rest doesn't matter. The rest. Meaning, success, approval, pleasure, even the outcome. Do the right thing, and let go. That's the hardest part. Letting go. You held your values. You stayed honest. And the deal went to someone who cheated. You stayed faithful, and were abandoned. You refused to gossip, and were excluded. You stood your ground, and were punished. It hurts. No philosophy can take away that sting. But Stoicism teaches us to see pain as proof. Proof that your morality was real, not theoretical. It cost you something. That's how you know it meant something. In this century of distractions, illusions, and moral relativism, the idea of personal honor might sound old-fashioned. But there is nothing more radical today than a person who refuses to sell out. A person who says, this line, I do not cross. And means it. Even when no one is watching. Especially then. Because the real battleground isn't public. It's the space between stimulus and response. That tiny pause before you act. The flicker of conscience. The moment when you decide, who am I going to be? We make that decision every day, often without noticing. And those small decisions, they shape our destiny far more than any ambition ever will. That's what the Stoics believed. Not that you must be perfect, but that you must strive to be whole. Integrated. At peace with your own mind. And peace doesn't come from external success. It comes from self-respect. Seneca said, "No man is crushed by misfortune unless he has first been deceived by prosperity." In other words, if your identity is built on the admiration of others, you will collapse when it's taken away. But if it's built on your moral center, on the quiet pride of knowing you lived well, then even disaster cannot break you. This is not philosophy for the monastery. This is philosophy for the battlefield of daily life. Because life in the 21st century is full of moral pressure. You're told that only suckers play fair. That ruthlessness is power. That winning is everything. And sometimes, they're right. The world often rewards the worst in us. But the Stoics never played that game. To them, winning through deceit was a deeper kind of defeat. Because even if you got what you wanted, you lost who you were. So who are you? That's the question this century is forcing us to answer. Not what do you have, not what do you wear, not how many people know your name, but, what kind of human being are you when the mask drops? In a time of artificial intelligence, digital personas, and curated lives, that question is more urgent than ever. When everyone's trying to be someone else, being real is a revolution. And morality is how you stay real. Not performative goodness. Not fake virtue. But a deep, personal commitment to what you know is right, even when no one claps. And no, you won't always get it right. You'll snap at someone you love. You'll lie to avoid trouble. You'll say the easy thing instead of the true thing. But then comes the moment that matters most. Do you face it? Do you admit it? Do you make it right? That's morality, too. Not never falling, but getting back up differently. A little wiser. A little kinder. A little stronger. The Stoics didn't aim for perfection. They aimed for progress. They believed life was training. Every insult, every failure, every injustice, a test of who you are becoming. And they believed the only failure was refusing to learn. So when you feel defeated by the world, pause. Ask yourself not, why did this happen to me, but, what kind of person will I be because of it? That is a Stoic question. That is a moral question. And it's one that no technology, no system, no ideology can answer for you. Only you can. Should we still be moral in the 21st century? Yes, because morality is not about the century. It's about the soul. And the soul hasn't changed. So here you are. Living in a world that often feels upside down. Where success is loud and virtue is quiet. Where money has more voice than wisdom. Where image dominates truth. And yet, something inside you still whispers, be decent. Be honest. Be kind. It doesn't shout. It doesn't argue. It just persists. Quietly. Like a steady pulse beneath all the noise. And maybe that's what morality is, after all. Not a grand theory. Not a list of rules. But a voice. Soft. Calm. Insistent. Saying, this is not who you are. This is who you are. You don't need religion to hear it. You don't need books or rituals. You don't need applause. You need only to be still for a moment and listen. Because it's already there, buried beneath fear, beneath ambition, beneath exhaustion. Waiting for you to return to yourself. The Stoics believe that morality is not something you build. It's something you uncover. Like a sculpture beneath the marble, it's always been there. Your task is to chip away what doesn't belong. And in this century, our century, that task has never been harder. Because the noise is constant. The temptations are subtle. The world doesn't ask you to be evil. It just asks you to stop noticing when you're not good. A little compromise here. A small betrayal there. A convenient lie. A numbing silence. Bit by bit, the erosion begins. Not in dramatic acts, but in 1,000 quiet moments where you choose what's easy over what's right. And yet, you don't have to. You can choose to live differently. Not perfectly, differently. With awareness. With courage. With a standard that belongs to you, not to your culture, your peers, or your timeline. That's where freedom begins. Because the great paradox of morality is this: the more you serve it, the more it sets you free. Free from guilt. Free from regret. Free from the burden of pretending. Free from the endless cycle of needing to be something you're not. And in that freedom, there is peace. Not the kind that comes from comfort or control, but the peace of inner alignment. Of no longer living in conflict with yourself. Marcus Aurelius ruled millions, but his greatest struggle was against the man within. His journal wasn't written to impress others, it was a fight to stay awake. To live justly in a world that rewarded vanity, corruption, and cruelty. He wasn't writing history. He was trying to hold on to his soul. So are you. You may not wear a crown. But you still rule a kingdom, your own mind, your own body, your own time on this earth. You are still responsible for the laws you live by. And you still have to ask yourself, what kind of ruler will I be? Will I betray my values to win? Will I numb myself to avoid pain? Will I mirror the worst of the world, or will I reflect the best in myself? These questions are not abstract. They're urgent. Because every day you make decisions that shape the story of your life. You're not just living, you're writing your legacy, sentence by sentence. And what will that legacy be? That you chased what everyone else chased. That you won a game you didn't believe in. That you reached the top, alone, ashamed, and empty. Or, that you stood for something. That you kept your soul, even when it cost you. That you became someone your younger self would be proud of. That you lived not to be praised, but to be real. In this world, that is no small thing. That is rebellion. That is strength. That is Stoicism, not as a historical curiosity, but as a living, breathing answer to the question we began with: should we still be moral in the 21st century? Yes. Not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Because without morality, we lose the thread of who we are. Without morality, success becomes hollow. Without morality, freedom becomes chaos. Without morality, power becomes cruelty. But with it, quietly, invisibly, we build something indestructible. A life of character. A spirit that endures. A dignity that outlives the moment. Seneca said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity. For he is not permitted to prove himself." And maybe that's the challenge we all face now. To prove ourselves, not by what we gain, but by what we refuse to abandon, even when the world tells us to. This century will test your integrity. It already has. And it will again. But it's also giving you the chance to stand apart. To be the rare one who still believes in truth, kindness, justice, not as branding, not as a performance, but as a way of life. And the good news is, you don't need permission. You don't need to be perfect. You only need to begin. So begin. Today. With one honest word. One humble apology. One act of restraint. One moment of stillness where you ask, what's the right thing to do? Then do it. Not for applause. Not for outcome. But because it's yours. And in that moment, morality will no longer feel like an ancient burden. It will feel like a home you had forgotten, and finally returned to.